How would it feel if we talked about vulnerability and shame? Shock. It's not something we talk about every day on social media, is it? We're supposed to be out here showing how amazing we are, how successful we are, how I've got an amazing success and you can have it too. And let's also get really real. Now, if you saw one of my videos over the last couple of days, you'll know that I have committed to doing 365 days, yes, 365 days of live or pre-recorded videos. So I am committed to showing up for me, I'm committed to showing up for you, and I want to make sure that these videos are really useful things for you. I'm not just going to be up here going, oh, tick in the box. I want to make sure that I've done that. I really want this to speak to your heart, to help you to recognize that you can make changes wherever you are, and also that you're good enough as you are. But getting better at presenting isn't just about what you put there on the outside, it's so much about how you feel on the inside. So this inspired me to look up a quote from one of my favourite authors, Brené Brown. And the quote is, "Speaking honestly and openly about who we are, about what we're feeling, and about our experiences, good and bad, is the definition of courage. When we find the courage to share our experiences and the compassion to hear others tell their stories, we force shame out of hiding and we end the silence." How powerful is that? So I would really love to help end the silence, the shame that people have around presenting. You know, one of the typical emails that I used to get into my inbox a couple of years ago was, "Hi Sophia, I'm wondering if you can help me. I have a bit of an embarrassing problem." And as you can imagine, as somebody who works in the field of hypnotherapy and coaching and creating mind shifts, a little part of my brain would go, oh, is this going to be erectile dysfunction? Is this person addicted to porn? Is that what they're going to start talking about because they feel embarrassed? And it wasn't. You know, it never ever was that. The thing that the people wanted to talk about was that they were petrified of presenting. They found public speaking absolutely nerve-wracking and they just didn't want to do it. They felt stupid, ashamed, flawed, not good enough to do the job that they're doing, and they felt scared because it was going to keep happening. So if Brené Brown is telling us that we need to speak honestly and openly about who we are and what we're feeling, I'm going to share with you a pretty bad experience that I had early on. Now, I have several different childhood experiences that really freaked me out when it comes to public speaking. This is one that comes from my 20s, where I was already kind of an adult, as much of an adult as you ever get to be when you're in your 20s. No offense to anyone in their 20s, I'm now in my 40s. I still don't always feel like an adult, and I'm sure lots of you can relate to that. So when I was in my 20s, I was invited by a friend, Martin, to come along and do a talk about the media. So I worked for the radio station, I worked in the news desk, on the news desk, and I was talking to him about mental health and how it's portrayed in the media and trying to understand more about what it is for people involved in the mental health industry that would block them from coming to talk more openly to us in the media and how we could share that message out. Now I have a cat shouting to get in the door, so let me just allow her to come in so I'll get some peace and quiet to carry on. Come on, good girl. So I agreed that I would go along and do this talk. I was petrified, but in all honesty, I was more ashamed, embarrassed to say, I'm too scared to come and do it. So even though I was petrified to go and do the talk, I was even more scared and ashamed to say, I'm too scared to come and do the talk. So I agreed. And then I told my news desk that I was going to go and do this talk. And somebody within the team said, "You are?" And I said, "Yes, I am." "Why have they asked you to do it?" And it wasn't in a negative way, but I internalized that as they should have asked somebody more senior. I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. I'm not going to do any good with this talk whatsoever. But I got over that because I was still too ashamed and embarrassed to say, Martin, I'm not the person for this. Like, I'm already having a mini panic attack at the thought of it. I'd already agreed, I'd already committed. So in my mind, I was going to do it. I always show up. If I say I'm going to do something, I will show up and I will do it. So I spent ages and ages, probably about 2 weeks, trying to pull together all of this information and think about what I really needed to share to help the people in the mental health organisation to feel safe enough to come and talk to us as journalists. But somehow, everything that I shared felt really defensive. I wasn't really looking at it from the audience's point of view. I was definitely trying to defend and honour myself and my team and lots of other journalists out there, whether or not they were rogue journalists or the good guys. I pitched up and I just talked and I talked and I talked. I remember that there was a big row of chairs that were kind of in a theatre style, and I just stood at the front and I just seemed to have no awareness as to how the audience was feeling, how the people were feeling. I just kept talking. My mouth got dry, I stumbled, I looked at them desperately seeking some kind of, "You're doing a good job, Sophia," and I wasn't seeing it. So I just kept talking, and then every so often I would ask if anybody had any questions, and people would kind of shuffle and look down, and nobody really did have any questions. And then I felt really bad because nobody had any questions, so I had to say something else to try and inspire them to have a question. And the more that I talked, the more I felt like I was digging myself into that hole. Clammy hands, dry mouth, sweating, just that feeling of I am completely rigid and I am terrified of what's going on here. And everything about it was just horrible. And at the end, I remember Martin coming over to me and kind of saying, we're a little bit over time. And I think I'd probably talked for about 45 minutes. And I don't think any of what I'd said was useful. And so I said, okay, no problem, I'll start to wrap up. And then I tried desperately to put some kind of conclusion on what I was talking about. And I didn't really have a conclusion because everything had just been one great big waffle and there was no questions and there was no interaction. And I was just up there corpsing, and it was a horrible, horrible, horrible experience. And afterwards, not only did I feel ashamed that I'd kind of shown up and made a fool of myself, not only did I feel embarrassed for Martin because he had brought me along as a kind of media representative to be able to do a really good job and help us to build relationships. And I felt like I just thrown all of that, just made a big mess of the whole thing. And it was really, really, really hideous. And then what came after that was the vulnerability hangover, where I knew that I'd gone in, I'd done this presentation, and I was making up all these stories as to what people thought about me, what people were saying about me, and all of that stuff that we typically do, how I'd been judged, how they thought I was not very good at my job, how they decided I wasn't a very good presenter, and I just made up all of this stuff. And maybe that's you too. So over the coming year, because let's face it, I have a lot of time, I am going to find more stories and be able to share bits and pieces with you to help you understand that you're not alone when it comes to a fear of presenting. And we can absolutely do everything we can, and we will, to get you a better result so that you go out, you present with confidence, you present with integrity, you influence with integrity, and more importantly, you feel calm, relaxed, and in control when you do it. It's my absolute passion. I can't wait to see what the other 361 days hold. Look forward to it. Talk soon. Bye-bye. And share your story. Drop me a message, comment below, or send me a message if you would rather stay private. I'd love to share some of your whoopsie moments. Let's get rid of the shame. Let's go out there with courage and confidence. Take care. Bye-bye for now.